In his positional masterpiece, the first world champion Wilhelm Steinitz first got the advantage of two bishops in the middle game. Then he started to expand on the both sides, on king side and queen side, and got a great space advantage by gradually squeezing his opponent to the maximum degree until the opponent almost couldn't move. And then he finally converted his positional advantage in the endgame. So let's see how he did that. Steinitz played black pieces, e4, e5, Spanish, Ruy Lopez. And now Steinitz played a little bit unusual move, g6. The idea is to fianchet to the bishop and take under control the key d4 square. White played d4 as it's the most natural move to fight for the center and activity. E takes d. And now white played the natural looking move, knight takes d4. However, this move was an inaccuracy. It would have been much better to play bishop g5, forcing either f6, which would weaken the king side, or bishop e7, which would lead to the exchange of dark square bishops, which would play into white's hand as dark squares on black king side would have been weakened. However, white played knight takes d4. Bishop g7 attacking d4, bishop e3 defending it, knight f6 attacking e4, knight c3 defending, castles, castles. Now Steinitz wanted to play d5, attacking white's center. However, it's impossible right away as white would have taken twice on c6. That's why this move needs to be prepared, which Steinitz exactly did after knight e7. Queen d2, d5. E takes, knight takes, knight takes, queen takes. So now the bishop on b5 is a little bit loose, and probably that's why white played bishop e2. And with his next move, Steinitz inevitably would get the advantage of two bishops. So I offer you to pause the video and try to find this move. So the move is knight g4, attacking the e3 bishop, which cannot move, because if it moves, d4 knight would fall. So white had to choose either to let black exchange on e3, or the second option, which white actually chose in the game, to give away the light square bishop. Bishop takes g4, bishop takes g4. And white played knight b3, hoping that the exchange of queens, which actually happened in the game, would, as it led to a symmetric endgame, white hoped that it would be relatively easy to make a draw against the world champion. So, however, it wasn't the case, as you would see, as black pieces are very active. For example, this bishop on g7 is very active, and it is attacking the queen side. And weak b2 pawn. However, it would have been a mistake to take the pawn on b2 right away, because bishop takes b2 would lead to rook b1, and after the retreat, rook would take on b7. That's why Steinitz prepared this move, bishop takes b2, by playing rook d8, activating the rook. And now, if it was black's turn, black could have taken on b2. Let's say white makes some irrelevant move. So now bishop takes b2. And now rook b1 doesn't work, because bishop would have retreated on d4, as d4 now is under control. And now if rook b7, white would lose a piece after exchange. As you see, the knight on d2 is unprotected. That's why after rook d8, white played c3 to protect the b2 pawn. However, this move, this c3 move, has downsides. It weakens the d3 square, and besides that, it puts another pawn on a dark square, which makes dark square bishop weaker and limits its activity even more. So Steinitz played rook e8, activating his second rook, and knight b3. So now Steinitz starts his strategy of restraining, gradually restraining light pieces of white and expanding. So I offer you to pause the video and find the move and also the whole plan of Steinitz's whole plan. So the move is b6, and the idea of this move is first of all to restrain the pieces. So knight cannot go neither to a5 nor to c5, and bishop is also less active now. And besides that, it prepares c5 move, which would restrain white pieces even more, taking under control very important d4 square and taking it away from knight and bishop. So white played h3, bishop e6, rook d1, and c5. Now white played bishop g5, attacking the rook and forcing f6, which temporarily blocks the bishop. However, it's only temporarily. Bishop f4 and king f7, activating the king, as king in the endgame should move towards the center into active position. And white, by the way, cannot do the same, because king f1 would be followed by bishop c4 check, activating the bishop even more and forcing white king to go back to g1. That's why white prepared the activation of king by playing f3 and preparing king f2 later. So now black starts to expand on the king side after the expansion on queen side is over by playing g5. So the most natural looking move, bishop e3, of course, would have been a mistake, as there is an x-ray here and the bishop on e3 is loose. So in this case, black would have exchanged rooks first, then exchange light pieces, and then taken on e3 with the extra piece. So after g5, it was better to play bishop c7, which looks a little bit unnatural. However, it was the best move. Instead of this, after g5, white exchanged a pair of rooks. Rook takes d8, rook takes d8, hoping that they exchange, the more pieces they exchange, the easier the defense would be. However, it wasn't the case, as you will see. So and now bishop e3, as there is no x-ray anymore. So now Steinitz would love to play f5 in order to continue the expansion with the idea of f4, limiting the bishop even more and getting even more space advantage. However, it's impossible right away, as f5 would be followed by bishop takes g5, as g5 is weak. That's why Steinitz prepares the f5 move by playing h6. Rook e1, and now f5. So now f4 is threatening, that's why white played f4. And also attacking g5. Bishop f6, defending g5, and now g3. So, as you see, all black pieces are much more active than all white pieces. But what to do next? The penetration square for rook is under control of white. And that's why Steinitz finds a very interesting way to continue his squeeze. So I offer you to pause the video and find the last resource that black still hasn't used, which Steinitz used to squeeze his opponent even more. So this last resource is the a7 pawn. So Steinitz played a5, threatening a4 and then a3, destroying the queen side. c3 would fall after that, and all queen side would fall and it would be the end. That's why white played knight c1, defending the pawn, and in order to play after a4, play a3 to prevent black from playing a3. Now black played bishop c4, emphasizing the total domination of c4 bishop over the knight, passive knight. King f2. So what to do now? The expansion and the squeeze has reached its maximum. All black pieces are at ideal squares. So what to do next? How to convert the advantage? Steinitz found a very non-standard and counterintuitive solution to this position. He exchanged the dark square bishops. It's counterintuitive because black gives away his advantage of two bishops. However, one of the advantages of two bishops is that it's always easy to exchange one of these bishops in order to get another advantage, which would be even more important, as you will see. And this advantage that black would get after exchange of the bishops is that the domination of the bishop over the knight would increase even more, as you will see. And it's very easy to exchange the bishops by playing gf. Of course, white cannot take with g pawn because it would lead to a skewer. That's why white took with bishop f4, and now bishop g5, forcing the exchange of bishops. Of course, the bishop cannot move to c7, because after this move, the penetration square would be free for the rook, and check, and black would have taken on b2 and win. That's why bishop g5 was followed by the exchange. And now king e3, king f6. So as you see, white almost doesn't have a move because all black pieces, the bishop and rook, are much more active than white pieces, and black also has a great space advantage. So therefore, white played h4, hoping to create the outside passed pawn. However, this outside passed pawn cannot do anything because black's activity is very high. So g takes h, g takes h. So now Steinitz exchanges the rooks. Rook e8 check, takes, which leads to which makes the white king very passive. It's on the first rank. And black king penetrates. It's very active in the center. And black threatens to go to f4, g4, and take on h4. So what to do now? The knight is very passive. It can't move anywhere. The only square it can move is on e2. And temporarily from e2, the knight prevents black king from going to f4. And now Steinitz exchanges the light pieces, and the pawn endgame is absolutely winning for black. King f4, c4, king g4, king e3, and now, of course, it would have been a terrible blunder to take on h4, as white would have played king f4 and most probably winning for white. That's why, of course, Steinitz didn't take on h4. He played f4 check. Now, if white retreats, then black can take on h4. And after king attacks on f4, black can defend it with an extra pawn. So after f4, that's why white played king e4. However, it doesn't work. Black plays f3, and there is nothing white can do in order to stop black pawn from promoting. So king e3, king g3. And here white resigned.